We've got to stop that sewage from going into the river before we can make any attempt to further clean the river up. We know what can be done with the sewage plants if it's a proper tertiary treatment plant like Melbourne and the places like that have got. So that's what I would ultimately like to see us work towards, is to get that world-class sewage treatment plant. Then we've stopped the sewage from going in. It's no good us doing cosmetic things that they keep saying, of taking 10 tonne out this morning, putting 50 tonne back in this afternoon. We've got to stop it from going in. Another stop that we've got to put on there is people saying that it's not really our problem. Now that come from some people just recently the other week that oughtn't to have been saying that at all. It is all of our problem. The fix is going to come down to money.
The reason that I chose this title, A Cleaner Tailor Is Possible, because in the time that we've been working on this issue, and in fact for a long time before that, we've been aware that there's a feeling that it is too hard, that nothing ever gets done. And I guess what I want to do in this talk is say that it is possible. And we believe that we've now come up with a way forward. It's probably about the 1920s. But if you look at this carefully, you'll see that the water is very clear. And that's evident. And this was before the Tamar Valley went in 1955. The fact that we can still have clear water in the very uppermost part of the Tamar around the yacht basin, there was good evidence of that back in 2003 when this photo was taken by Jeff Smedley, and the Tamar Valley wasn't functioning. Water was coming through because there was maintenance going on. So clean water, the silt zone, we believe, has moved further up the Tamar than it originally was. All estuaries are silty, but not as extensively as we believe is now occurring in the Tamar. I've included a media release from the Launceston City Council, which recorded the number of people who are going through the two main gates into up the Cataract Gorge or down through the basin in January and February. And it came to nearly 113,000 people. Now, if you do your sums, that is about the number of people who went through Mona in Hobart in 2012. So Launceston has a natural attraction. It's free. It's bringing people to it, and that we should really value that attraction. Worldwide, Boag's beer is quite popular, and again, it's a picture of the Cataract Gorge that is on that label. So I hope I've convinced you at this point that the Tamar and the Upper Tamar are very important, and yet the doorstep or the gateway to the gorge looks like this. Now this was at its very worst at the end of the drought. It doesn't look quite as bad now that there's been some silt raking, and we don't actually know how much of that mud that we can see there is sewage and how much is silt. There's been a report card produced recently by NRO North. This is the second report card that they've produced. And what it shows quite clearly is that the top end of the Tamar is in very poor condition. And it's probably been well known that raw sewage has been going into the Tamar since it was settled, since 1806. I've just put a quote here from a recent report, 2009. So the issue is, particularly in the greater Launceston area, is old infrastructure, where the sewage isn't separated from the stormwater. So the minute there is rain, there's too much stormwater moving out, and it all just has to go into the system. You might get away with this if you're right on the coast. There are still many parts of the world where sewage is discharged straight into the ocean. The ocean is very large, it gets diluted. Most people agree that's not what we should be doing, but we certainly shouldn't be doing it in a place that is 70 kilometres from the coast. So the sewage is just sloshing backwards and forwards on the tide. The other thing that we're asking for is that at this point Hydro Tas need to become engaged, because there's no doubt that the Tamar Dam has had a major impact on the yacht basin. So prior to the Tamar Dam going in, there was about 30 cubic meters per second coming down. That was creating a nice wide water body in the yacht basin. The dam went in 1955. Since then, what you can see there, that little trickle is the amount coming through at the moment. No wonder there is so much mud, silt and sewage now filling up the yacht basin. But what we need are strategic releases. We don't need a large amount of water coming down the whole time. That water is important, it's generating electricity, but flow releases, small to moderate floods, that's what the dam has cut out, and these could actually be used. There could be kayaking events, Launceston could become the whitewater kayaking capital of Australia. We've been told by state politicians and federal politicians we're not going to do anything until the Launceston City Council tells us what the community wants. So we think it is now time for the Launceston City Council and the greater Tamar Valley councils to get together and say we do want this issue to be dealt with. We do want the sewage to be treated. We do not want raw sewage going into the Tamar, and we want better flushing.
How to deal with human waste issues at the best level. It's not about spending billions of dollars, but it is about being clever and avoiding waste. And so I would like to see that we can capture the phosphor out of the waste streams, what is not considered the waste streams. And there are fascinating processes, and that works in Bangladesh, where the people live on less than $1 a day. And they are willing to learn and to operate together. And it works in modern town planning, where instead of mixing everything together, it is being separated.
We do need to properly treat our sewage, and this is a major problem. It's a major problem with Tasmania in getting people together, because we need people from Breakaday, from Meander Valley, from Northern Midlands Council, from the West Tamar Council, from Georgetown Council, and from Dorset and Launceston. We need all of these councils because they all put stuff, and I don't know the quality of that stuff, into the Tamar. Once we get a plan, then we all should work together to make sure we get all of the governments involved in supporting that plan.
What you see under the ground, what you can't see, is the infrastructure that feeds those sewage treatment plants. And we were tardy in not recognising where we were failing. So we need to acknowledge that. I certainly acknowledge it. And we need to say, well, look, enough is enough. We need to treat it. There's 28,000 houses in Launceston, 70,000 people. To a lesser degree, you have communities down the river on both sides. So you need to have an active treatment plan to fix it. We need to stand up and fight, and I'll be certainly standing up and fighting for this city to have a tertiary treatment plan as a priority in the first term of the federal government. They need to recognise it. They can fund all sorts of things. We need this in this city.
Thank you, Alderman Sands.
When it comes to the upper catchment and these short rotation plantations that were established in the last 15 years, may have to be managed in a very different way. This is not about oak growth, it's not about tree hugging, it is about managing an estate in a way that the runoff is regulated and not ad hoc or erratic. With those weather patterns that are changing, with these masses of rain we have got, it may not erode directly where the trees are cut, but it erodes then a few kilometres further downstream.
My name's Alan Atkins, and I'm a licensed plumber, and I've been a licensed plumber for 55 years. One of the things we learn, or the first thing you learn as a plumber, is you've got to consider the community health and safety and the prevention of pollution. And this combined system in Launceston complies with neither. It is the only system in Australia that is approved by government. Nowhere else in Australia can you put sewage into stormwater or vice versa. You know, I worked as a plumbing inspector here for years, and we had to put in separate stormwater sewer pipes in all the areas around Launceston, and it's only this combined system's the problem, and we've got to attend to that.
If Jeff Lyons wants to hand me a cheque for $150 million now, I'll greatly accept it on behalf of the community. At least that. But that will just do the treatment plants. And here's the disconnect. We don't disagree that there should be 1 or 2 treatment plants that are at this sort of accepted modern technology standard. The issue is, how does it actually address the combined system? You've got to get the waste stream to the treatment plant. The waste stream doesn't get to the treatment plant when there's high rainfall events. That's why it goes to the North Escort, to the Tamar. Because the pipework isn't actually there, the pumps aren't actually there to take it. In dry weather events, Tertiary Bend copes with about 15 megalitres a day. It's licensed up to 25. If we have high rainfall events, it has to cope with, theoretically, if you were taking all the combined system to a treatment plant, 200 megalitres per day. Say that again, 200 megalitres a day. This is over 10 times the capacity. That is what will add to the cost of building such a plant. And the comment was made over here, and it was an extremely valid one. Don't we have to sort out what we do with the combined system first before we design a treatment plant? Because you need to know for what capacity you are designing for. And you do not want to design a 200 megalitre a day plant if you're not going to have to take the 200 megalitres. It's massive. It's an exponential cost increase. To be honest, I find the argument we just go and separate it a little bit simplistic. Of course, that will be massively expensive too. The council costed it in 1993 to be at least $200 million just for that. So add that to the 150 to 200 million for the treatment. Now we're up to 400 million. So is that the answer? Is that the only solution? No, it isn't. You can add more detention into the system. That's part of the answers. You can improve the pump stations. You can put more actual screening in the pump stations to at least make sure that the solids and other materials that get discharged in high rainfall events are captured. And you could increase, in fact, the rising mains and capacity to Tertiary Bend to take more of it, so it is in very high rainfall events, perhaps, that there are overflows. Because here's one of the other little facts that people need to understand. Combined systems exist all over the world, particularly in the Northern Hemisphere. They exist in Europe, they exist in North America. But perhaps they're managed better and they've been improved to a far higher level. We do need to just think carefully about how we do finally address the combined system before we actually design and build a treatment plant. Thank you.
Thank you. That the Tamar Valley community, through this forum, call on Taswater, all bordering local councils, state and federal governments to immediately commence consultations necessary for the construction of a state-of-the-art tertiary sewage treatment facility at an appropriate greenfield site to service the entire Tamar Valley.
The things in favour of the motion is the fact that we can get this big tertiary treatment plant and it will service most of the valley. It will take a lot of that stormwater that's in the combined system. Now, it's not only Launceston and this part that we've got combined sewage. There's sewage coming out of stormwater pipes in Riverside and all over the place. So it's the whole area that we want to clean up. And the way I see it is for that major tertiary treatment plant to go in, and then we start channeling all of the sewage around these other plants into it. Then we can, as I said, get the stormwater out of the system.
It's carried by a very narrow majority, just. I made it about 24 to 19. All right, the motion before you is that through this forum, the Tamar Valley community calls on Tasmania, Launceston City Council, state and federal governments to take immediate steps to separate the stormwater and sewage infrastructure in all the appropriate suburbs of Launceston. Motion's carried. The Tamar community agrees that something should be done to get sewage out of the river as rapidly and as cost effectively as possible. Get on with it. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you.